Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we read The Alloy of Law, chapters 2 and 3, wherein we meet Wax's fiance, I guess, Steris, and his best buddy, Wayne. And then Wax learns a little bit about this new criminal gang that is apparently causing some trouble in the big city. So I'm Data, and with me is...
Jamie.
Dak.
And Joe.
So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
The streets spin shimmers and the walls they curl. The grip of greed, it rains. There's just one track to lead this moving train. The price of progress is a dying world. The price of trust is pain after the wrath, the bitter shame. Look up into the night. Pillars of risen, they all in their light. Forward we run, splinter the steel, weaken the wheel. Through life and loss, rivers of soul are trying. The heavy cause of haunting the hands untied. Through life and loss.
So yeah, Jamie last time was like, man, I want to meet this Wayne guy. So here we go. We didn't have to wait too long. What did you guys think of the 2 chapters that we read this time?
Yeah, I'm glad we got to meet Wayne. I don't fully know what I was expecting of Wayne by the time we got there, but I don't think I was disappointed. I think he's quite the character, and I've just got him kind of built up in my head as all these different like stereotypes and like weird comic voices and stuff, and I'm just like, oh god, I really need to probably read what we read again and just listen to what he has to say. But I enjoy his power. I think that's kind of cool, being able to sort of speed up time in your own little bubble. I'm not like completely sure how it works, but that was kind of cool. I look forward to seeing a bit more of him and, you know, how that's all going to tie together. Steris, yeah, she's an individual. She's very to the point. Nothing quite so romantic as a many page contract outlining, you know, your mistress allowance.
Yep.
Well, this sounds like quite a match. And the mystery, all the robberies and kidnappings and stuff. It's cool. It sounds, you know, like some good old sleuthing's going to happen, which I'm really excited about too. So, and again, more little hints about things that we already knew from the previous Miss Bourne books. I actually quite like this is it Parthian religion.
Yeah.
And you know, having to wear the earring. I was like, here we go. This is how we're going to talk to Sazed, I'm sure. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. These religions that they're sort of following at the moment don't seem so ridiculous, which is good at the moment. And obviously we already know a bit about the survivor religion, so it'd be nice to have something a little bit different and sort of see what they've done in the last 300 years with them all. Yeah, it was good. I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, I was about to say, we know the survivor religion, like where it started, but it's had 300 years or whatever to evolve. So it'll be interesting to see how that has developed.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, you know, religions that we kind of deal with, you know, back in the real world, 300 years on, that's really not a lot of time for a religion. So, but a lot can happen. You know, you've got enough generations that have passed and enough things that have happened, you know, word of mouth and things that have changed. And originally these religions were set up by the people who were there, and we've read about those stories. So it'd be really cool to see how they've changed them and, yeah, what they took away from, I guess, those experiences and where we left off in the last books.
I'm trying to think of how modern religions have evolved. I guess Martin Luther was only like 500 years ago. So it's like before that, everything was Catholic. And then in the last 500 years, it's evolved in different directions and craziness, even just with Christianity.
Yeah. Evolved.
Yeah.
But, you know, and you mentioned the contract thing. When you said that, I was like, I wonder if marriages would have more or less trouble if your mistress allotment was just included in the agreement when you started. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, have as many as you want.
You may have 3 extramarital affairs, but not 4.
Not 2.
5 is right out.
I like the idea of not 2. It's like, no, you better find another one because you're not done.
Even numbers are
I just it's like,
unacceptable.
okay, here's what I'm willing to do for you. No more than 3, not less than 1, and by the time you've got an heir, that allotment goes to fortnightly.
I really enjoy this. Wayne is a character, kind of bit of a smartass, but I'm enjoying seeing him. Yeah, the whole dinner conversation thing, the contract and Lady Steris and her dad, and I was like, this did not go at all how I thought it was going to, and I was lapping it up. Like every second was hilarious. I'm curious about, God, what was the name? Was it Marasi?
Oh yeah, Marasai, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so look, she's clearly got some information that we don't know yet, so we'll be seeing more of her. Very, very cool. I liked the aluminium bullets, and just like, oh yeah, so there has been a rise in technology specifically to counter coin shots and lurches, in addition, like where they've brought in the guns. So like, yeah, I don't know how well a real world aluminium bullet would go, but it makes sense in the context of this world. So that's cool. It makes sense of what we know about aluminium here. So yeah, I thought that was a nice little touch. Like this is a really good. The second chapter where it's basically him trying to figure out the crime and figure out his religion. I'm like, all right, this is just info, I guess. It's like, it's interesting, but it wasn't quite as like it seemed to slow down a bit. I guess it's necessary though. I did love the butler getting so offended when he's just like, yeah, whatever for the tea, and the butler's just like, oh boy, no, how dare you on this, the day of my daughter's wedding.
I was watching Scott Pilgrim with the kids or something the other day, and there's the scene where she's like, what kind of tea do you want? And Scott's like, there's more than one kind.
Yeah, right.
I'd love someone to come and bring me this like custom made tea every night. Are you planning to
Sounds
sleep
like you
soon?
need a butler.
Yeah, I know. Get on that.
I don't know anything about tea.
Jack.
Well, go and research tea. Become an expert on how to make various forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's the internet for if not to research tea?
Exactly.
The entire history of the East India Company.
Uncle Iro, help me now.
Some nice jasmine tea. Yeah, these chapters, the first chapter, I kind of get he's supposed to be this way, but Wayne kind of annoys me. I like him, but he kind of annoys me. But yeah, I mean, I think that's supposed to be kind of part of his charm, if you want to call it charm. But yeah, he's quirky, he's fun. The disguise thing is cool. The speed thing is cool. That also made me think maybe that's how he ended up accidentally killing Leslie. That guy had the same power, the murderer dude. So that he would
see where the stop time or whatever, see where the bullet is going and move her over.
Yeah, that would be my guess as to how that happened, and I guess he just didn't realize at the time that guy had that power. The other thing that I was kind of questioning is Marcy's like role, because she does have information, but it also sounded like the Harms were trying to keep her from giving out that information. And so I'm almost wondering if she's also an Allomancer and they kind of know what's up, and that's why they're keeping her close by. And because the Techiel family or whatever, there's some kind of plot going on with them where they were smuggling stuff and then they basically got the tables turned on them. I'm also wondering if maybe other of the large, wealthier houses were involved in the same thing, and now they're also having issues because they were all profiting from it together, maybe. Because, what better way to smuggle than to put everybody's stuff in one pot? So it's like, I sell my wool in quotation marks to Techiel, and then he moves it and it's actually aluminum or whatever. So I think maybe that's something that kind of popped in my brain when it's revealed that the Techiel house has stuff going on. But yeah, I know I'm kind of jumping all around. Going back to the marriage contract of it all, that lady is crazy. I really don't think that he needs to get involved with her at all. I also like how she's like Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna have dalliances as well. You know, the coachman's a proper thing, and I'm like, so you're into coachmen? Like, I don't understand what's going on. So yeah, that was weird.
Back of a coach wagon.
Yeah. So I also like how she's like, yeah, we'll have sex up to 3 times, not more than once, or no less than once though, a week. I'm like, that part of the contract, I was like, would it be prudent to get something like that in writing? I don't think that's a good idea.
You just pull out the contract like, no, you are contractually obligated to see this through.
Yeah, and it's Saturday.
She could have set a time limit.
We haven't. Yeah, it's Saturday and we haven't done it at all. So guess what? 3 times today. Let's go. Anyway, yeah, very.
Your dad's
very
sitting
strange.
right there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think at one point the dad kind of gets uncomfortable because he's like, let's shift it on to other topics.
Less personal matters.
Yeah, because not only did she tell her dad, like, yeah, I've calculated how many times we're going to have sex during a week. She also told her dad, also, I'm going to have sex with other men outside of my marriage, and he's going to have sex with other women outside of her marriage. So,
and she specifically mentioned the coachman. So now that like every coach that they
exactly.
dad is going to be like, did you?
Yeah. Like when they got in the coach after visiting his house, they're gonna be like, he's gonna be thinking about it. Like, wait a minute.
No, not until after an heir is provided. That's the deal.
I guess, yeah. But anyway, good chapters. We're like 20% of the way through, so like,
yep.
I assume stuff's gonna start developing pretty quick here. But you know, of course, we have to have some intro to different characters and who's going to be in play, but I do like kind of mysteries, so this one seems to be presenting itself in more of a mystery style, so that's cool. I like that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what happens next.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely seems like from the 3rd chapter that there may be a mystery afoot that we're going to have to figure out. So watch that not come out to anything. It's like, oh, by the way, the Vanishers is completely irrelevant to the rest of the book, but whatever.
A game is the foot.
So okay, I guess let's get into these things. So we have the 6-month time jump that Joe mentioned last time, and presumably from what we see in these chapters, the 6 months is to give him time to have repaired his cred with the upper crust without us having to watch him go to all these parties and be a good lord or whatever.
I mean,
how fun would that have been?
Well, I thought initially when they first came in that he hadn't repaired his cred because both Lord Harms and his daughter were on him from the start, and then like Joe said, it's like, oh, no. It's not that he hasn't repaired his credit, it's just that she's nuts.
Yeah. Another thing that bothered me, and we're about to get there, is like the chapter starts off like, hey, how do I look in this cravat? It's like, okay, cool, I guess.
Yeah, there's a whole discussion. It's like, how's my cravat? And Talam is like, well, it's impeccable as always, my lord. And they have a whole discussion about like, I've never worked for a lord who actually knew how to tie a cravat. I'm curious how this came about. And Wax is like, well, I had to do it on my own out in the roughs. And dude's like, did you really need a cravat in the roughs? I wouldn't have thought that fashion was a thing out there. And we already knew that he liked to dress gentlemanly even out in the middle of nowhere. And he says here that it had an effect on people. Some immediately respected him and others immediately underestimated him. And it worked for him in both cases. So
yeah, it's a cool little trick.
That was his thing. Everybody needs a shtick to become a famous lawman, and so that's his thing.
The gentleman lawman.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like when you play Red Dead and you get the expansion and it has all the extra suits and one of them's like gentleman's attire and you're walking around on a ranch, and I always thought, this is kind of weird. Why would you wear this? But like, this guy totally works for.
Yeah. I like the note. As he's getting dressed, he has the one steel button on his vest among the wooden ones, and that's really harkens back to like back in the Final Empire days. They also wore like wooden buttons and wooden decorations, maybe painted to look metallic, because you don't want to give an Allomancer a weapon, but he is the one who would use the weapon, so I guess it kind of works for him. So we find out that Lord Harms is coming to have a chat with him, and we find out a little bit about the house. Very fancy, big place that he's been away from for 20 years. And he still didn't quite feel like it's his. He can still smell his uncle's pipe smoke, it says. A lot of deep woods, dark woods, and heavy stone sculptures. Despite modern tastes, there were almost no portraits or paintings. Many of those had been valuable and had been sold before his uncle's death. So that's how badly off they are for money. They were selling the art off the walls. And then we meet the I don't know, is she like the maid or Miss Grimes? I don't know exactly what her job is.
From the description, it sounds like, and I think they even say her title at one point in the chapter. She's like the lady, the head servant lady of the house. Like she takes care of all the other people. So if you ever watch Downton Abbey, it's like the one dude's like Carson, and she's like Mrs. Patmore or whatever.
Mrs. Doubtfire, sure. Yeah, okay.
Wait, no, Miss Patmore's the cook. I forget the lady who's in charge of all the other
No,
servants.
Mrs. Yeah, can't remember her name.
I don't watch Downton Abbey, so it's
Yeah,
still
it was
lingering.
Mrs. Hughes. I knew that one.
Mrs. Hughes, there you go.
Hughes. I always want to
Yep.
say Bates, and Bates is not right.
No, the one girl does get married to Mr. Bates, but
Yes.
I don't even know if it said
Mrs.
her last
Bates.
name at the beginning.
Well, now she's Mistress Bates, so it's all good.
And then Mrs. Hughes gets married to Mr. Carson.
I mean, spoilers.
I mean, come on, the show's been out for a long time. If you're gonna watch it, you should have already watched it by now.
This,
They
I
got-
mean, it's,
they got
it's
a-
what,
they got
like
a second
7
movie on
series
the
and a
way.
second movie now.
Yeah,
Everything is
exactly.
ruined. I can't watch it now.
You weren't gonna watch it.
No, I wasn't gonna watch
One
it.
of those things I just don't know that we need another movie, but I'm going to see it.
Oh, my wife's super excited. She doesn't care. They could make 10 movies and she'd see every single one.
Yeah, but it's
I
not the
will,
same people.
I don't know. I think it
I don't
is.
think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think it's like a new generation of them or something.
See, this may be like them making a movie so they could spin off into a new TV show.
Yeah, got a backdoor sequel.
Maybe.
I will say I do enjoy looking at Michelle Dockery. She's very pretty.
Shrug. Don't know who that is still, so you know.
Did you see that
I do
movie
love her character.
with
The Gentleman?
Matthew McConaughey and that one? Did you see that one?
Yeah.
That
She's
was
a-
good.
Yeah, she's McConaughey's wife in that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see it then. It's a pretty good movie. I like how in the first Mistborn book, even when she's faking, going to like the parties and stuff, it never seemed as Downton Abbey as this is, where he's got his butler and his like maid or whatever, and it's like, oh, your mother would have been so pleased to see this day.
The housekeeper, the title.
Yeah, housekeeper makes sense. Maybe it'll probably say in a minute, and I've just forgotten. But
I guess we never really got a proper insight into the homes of the lords and ladies in the first one of
Yeah.
Mistborn either.
I think the most
Yeah.
we saw
Like,
of the
we had
servants
Strack,
was
but-
when there was a terraceman servant. You'd see Sean Ariel had a terraceman servant.
There was that one chapter
Yeah.
where we followed Ellen back into the house, but we didn't really see much of the staff behind besides
Yeah,
Tenson.
but also Strathventure was just,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
his house wasn't normal.
True.
Well, and who knows how many of the servants were Ska in general, and so nobody would pay much attention to them regardless. I don't know.
Mm.
But yeah, it's not an area that we actually saw much of. And by the time that Vin and Ellen are married or whatever, they don't have a lot of servants because they're kind of struggling for the money and keep the government running. I guess they still did have servants because she had issues with the maid like throwing out the meat that was rotting for her Khandra or whatever. Fun times. So Miss Grimes is like, yeah, you should have heard how she worried all those years. And Wax is like feeling guilty. And I never really took the time to write to my parents or sister. Only visited that one time right after the railway reached Weathering. So I guess there was no railway out there when he went out there. So he just rode a horse out into the wilderness and figured it out. But 6 months down, he's finally getting his feet under him, he says. He's pulling House Ladrian along, bringing him back from the brink of financial collapse. So yeah, that was 6 months we didn't need to see, but it makes sense that it would take a while for him to start turning things around. And so the doorbell rings. He assumes it's them, even though they're early. And he's like, oh, I'm going to go. No, wait, I should give them some time. Don't want to seem too eager. Miss Grimes, is there something? Just give me anything to keep me distracted for a minute. And I like it. It points out that he is fingering the gun inside his jacket or the grip on his Immerling 44S. I like just from his perspective, whenever it's talking about the guns, it gives us like this make and model sort of thing, because that's the kind of thing that he is aware of and very like familiar with and conscious of, whereas it means absolutely nothing to us.
He's a collector.
He's a man who guns are important. So, and he's like, it's a good gun, not as good as Renette would make, but a proper small sidearm for a gentleman. He's like, I might not be a lawman anymore, but I'm not going to go around unarmed. That would just be nuts.
Oh, this is where they say it. It says she's the steward.
Yep, the house steward. Sure enough. And had been for the last 20 years. We lost another shipment of steel last night. The second shipment that we've had stolen. House Techiel has lost 5 shipments, so they seem to be hating on House Techiel, it seems like. I mean, I guess somebody else might have lost a bunch too, and we just don't know, but that's...
Yeah, well, we find out why, though, later.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good... Well, it makes sense for the first one, at least. It was like, well, we'll steal that for that reason. And so he's like, wait, what? Give me the details. No, wait, I can't afford to be distracted. And it's like, she gave him a flat look since that was why she'd probably avoided telling him in the first place. He's just so nervous, and it's kind of funny. He's like, should I go? If I made them wait long enough, has it been too long? I don't... And the mail has come. He's got an invitation to the Yeoman Ostlin wedding. So we're hearing more about House Yeoman. They're having a wedding.
Yeah, sure enough.
Mazel tov.
So Miss Grimes is like, hey, that might be a good place for your first public appearance with Miss Harms. And he keeps being like, no, it's not. Nothing's been decided yet. Quit acting like we're getting married right now. Like I've got to soothe their sense for these things. Young master. And he's like, I'm 42 years old, right? I don't think young master really. And I love that the next paragraph where it's just like, she considers any unmarried man to be a child, which is really unfair considering that she has never married. And it says he refrained from speaking to her about Lessie. Most of the family in the city hadn't known about her. So maybe that means they were married, since it's like, I just never mentioned that.
I got the feeling that they were from the context, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it wasn't explicitly said, but I thought it was.
I don't think it was explicitly said, but I could be wrong too. Lemmy, head of the ground floor staff, waited by the doorway. He's got a staff. It's nice. Need to get me one of those. And so he walks in there, expecting to find Lord Harms and his daughter. That is not who he finds. A lanky man with a round, sharp chin face, about 30 years old, wide Ruff's style hat, playing
Someone has stepped off the set of Peaky Blinders. And when he talks, his accent definitely sounds like Cockney.
Hello, Wax. Yeah, I see what you mean. Can I trade you for this? He says, holding up the clock. And he's like, Wayne, what are you doing here? Swiftly pulling the door shut behind him, like, I don't want anyone to see me with this guy. And it's like, I'm looking at your stuff, mate. And he's like, you're supposed to be in Weathering. Who's watching the place? Barl. Hey, Barl's back. Barl, he's a miscreant. So am I. Yes, but you're the miscreant I chose for the job. Could have at least sent for Miles. Wayne does not like Miles. It's like, mate, Miles is a horrible human being. He'd rather shoot a man than bother actually finding out if the bloke was guilty or not. So I guess Miles is a lawman in another town because he says Miles keeps his town clean. He's like, I told you to watch Weathering. He's like, yeah, but you're not the boss anymore. So I got some important stuff to be about. Where were you last night around midnight? And that's when the doorbell rings again. He's like, oh, shit. These are high-class people, Wayne. I've spent months trying to persuade people I'm not a ruffian. You have to get out.
I like how his buddy shows up and immediately starts grilling him, being like, where were you the night of this?
Well, and when he's like, no, you got to get out of here. He's like, now that's right, suspicious. Dodging questions, acting all anxious. What are you hiding, sir? And Wax, Wax is like, look, I appreciate it that you have come all this way just to aggravate me. It's really sweet, but now is not the time. You got to go. So apparently he is here because a shipment of foodstuffs was robbed off of a railway car on its way to Weathering. He's like, I hear you recently lost 2 of your own shipments, these Vanishers, so I've come to question you. Right suspicious, as I said. And he's like, how is that? I am the one who got robbed. How does that make me suspicious? I don't know. How am I to know how your devious criminal genius mind works? Oh, my gosh. This guy is fun. Right now, my criminal genius mind is wondering if I can stuff your corpse anywhere that wouldn't be too obvious. And the door opens, and the servant is sitting there, holding the door open as a corpulent man in a very fine suit with mustaches that droop all the way down to his thick neck.
Oof, man.
Yeah, right. And he's yelling at the servant, I don't care who he's talking to. We had an appointment. And then he notices the door's open. He's like, oh, okay, right. Followed by a stern-looking woman with her golden hair fixed in a tight bun, his daughter Steris. And a younger woman that Wax did not know. And Lord Harms is like, Lord Ladrian, I don't like being made to wait. Who's this that you're meeting? And before he can explain, Wayne is like, oh, I'm his uncle. His voice has been altered to sound gruff and lose its rural accent. He'd removed his hat and duster, put on a realistic-looking fake mustache. We got a mustache of power again. Or the mustache of leadership, whatever it was.
I'm going to say whoever's got the chief mustache here is Is
Oh,
Lord
that's
Harms.
true. Yeah, he definitely has the more impressive mustache. Fair point. Scrunching his face up to produce some extra wrinkles, and he looks like he might be a little older than Wax rather than 10 years younger. And Wax looks over and he can see the duster and the hat and some dueling canes lying in a pile. And this is where we get our first look at one of the new allomancy powers. Bendalloy, that metal we heard before. Wayne burns it. He is what is called a slider. He creates a bubble of compressed time around himself, which he often uses to change costumes.
I don't know why it's called a slider. That makes no sense to me.
Maybe he just really liked that TV show.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds, yeah.
That was all about time travel, wasn't it? Was that? No, that was dimension
No,
hopping.
it was like dimension hopping, yeah. No, it was the other one. Quantum Leap was time travel.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but also Bendalloy, that's not something we heard in the first set of books, is it?
No, but
No,
we did
that's new.
in the last section of chapters. That was something got somebody's shipment of Bendalloy got stolen, and we looked it up and found out that it was actual metal.
Gotcha.
It's just one that we'd never heard of, or that I'd never heard of. I guess maybe somebody else had. But anyway, yeah, he's also a twin-born, by the way. He has the ferrochemical ability to heal, which is healing is gold, if I remember correctly. So cool powers. I guess if you can speed up time and then heal quickly while you're in the sped up time bubble, that would be like super quick healing.
Yeah.
And
So wait, so is Slider referring to both of his powers? or
no, I
just-
think it made it sound like it was just the Bendalloy thing.
Okay, so what do they call him when he's both?
That's a good question. He this is the guy who supposedly has memorized all the twin-born names, so he should know. And Lord Harms is like, "What? This is your uncle, huh?" And he's like, "Oh," and Wayne jumps in, not on the mother's side, not on the Ladrian side, of course. Come to check up on the lad. He's had a rough and tumble past, you know. And Lord Harms is just like, "Yeah, I assume we're given leave to sit, Lord Ladrian." Wax has kind of been thrown off his game here a little bit. And we introduce Steris, who notices the duster and the hat in the corner and has a bit of a disapproving look. And he's like, "Ah, crap, she thinks this stuff is mine."
Yeah.
No, she really doesn't seem to care though.
Oh, she didn't say anything out loud anyway.
And it just says her lips turned down, so.
Oh, it's like she's like, but yeah, she doesn't let it interfere with like the rest of the night. She's like,
That's
yeah,
true.
whatever.
Yeah. And her cousin Marasi, or Marasi, I think I've heard Brandon actually pronounce it Marasi, but I've always said it Marasi in my head. So whatever you like. She looks down demurely as Wax turns to her. Steris says she spent most of her life in the outer states and is rather timid, so please don't upset her. Like, oh, well, I was going to upset her, but now that you said that, all right. And then we're treated to how much he's thought through where he sits down in the room. He takes a seat where he's facing one doorway, and there's another exit, but he found out that there's a squeaky floorboard leading to that door. So now no one can sneak up on him. Lawman or lord, he didn't fancy getting shot in the back. Well, I guess some habits die hard. And I love the. Perhaps I should begin by asking after your health. And Steris goes, "Yeah, perhaps you should." Okay. And Wayne asks about Lord Harm's cane. He's like, "Is that mahogany?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's a family heirloom." Just the most random crap. And Steris is the one who's like, "Let's dispense with all the chit chat. We know why we're here." And Wayne, who does not know why they're here, by the way, he's like, "What, we do?" And so they lay it all out. It's like your uncle, may he rest with the hero, tarnished the Ladrian name with his social reclusiveness, occasional reckless forays into politics, and blatant adventurism. I don't know what blatant adventurism is. That part sounds fun.
Like, yeah, how can you be a reclusive and an adventurer?
You can adventure by yourself, I guess. A
Maybe.
recluse from other people. But it reminds me of if you guys have seen the new DuckTales show, like Scrooge McDuck in that show.
No, I haven't.
It's a great show. It's always going on about adventure, though. Her house, on the other hand, has excellent financial status, but their name is unknown in the highest of society, she says. And her father has no male heir, so a union between their houses makes perfect sense. And Wayne's just like, "Yeah, how logical of you." The upper class accent rolling off his tongue as if he'd been born with it. And she's like, "So look, you were pretty bad in your first few weeks here, but in the last few months, you've kind of turned everything around. So I've taken the liberty of drawing up an agreement that I think will suit our needs." And he's like, an agreement? Wayne, on the other hand, is, "Oh, I'm so eager to see this. Okay." The agreement was a document of at least 20 pages, which she's made 3 copies of, one for Wax, one for her father, one for herself. And Lord Harms is like, "Yeah, I asked her to write down her thoughts, and she is thorough." And Wayne makes a joke that only Wax can hear about don't ask her to pass the milk or she'll throw a cow at you.
Nice.
I would be
And-
impressed if she could throw a cow. Those things are huge.
Yeah, maybe she's a pewter burning person. You never know.
Possibly.
The document is in several parts. The first is an outline of our courtship phase, wherein we make obvious but not too speedy progress toward an engagement. The engagement must not be so quick as to seem a scandal, but cannot come too slowly either. 8 months should, by my estimates, fulfill our purpose. She's something. And Wax is just like, oh.
It's like, all right, I can see the logic here. That all makes sense. Yeah, I get it. High society and their views and everything. So that seems a bit more detailed than I would have expected, but also logical. That's all fine. It's then when they get to the romance stuff, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, he's like, shouldn't there be room for romance in this? And she's like, there is. Page 13. Upon marriage, there shall be no more than 3 conjugal encounters per week and no fewer than 1 until a suitable heir is provided. After that, the same numbers apply to a 2-week span.
She's basically Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Relationship contract.
He's like, yeah, page 13, of course. How did I not? Yeah, all right. And meanwhile, Wayne has taken a bullet from his pocket and is rolling it between his fingers. And she's like, so if that's not enough to satisfy your needs, the next page details proper mistress protocols. And he's like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, mistresses are a fact of life, so it's better to account for them than to ignore them. And so the document, you will find the requirements for your potential mistresses, along with the means by which discretion will be maintained. So she's like, I have rules about like the requirements for your mistress, and also I'm going to go ahead and set up the ways that you will use to keep this stuff a secret from, whoever. It's very, very thoughtful of her. And she says, of course, I'm going to follow the same guidelines. And it says, Wayne asks, perking up, you plan to take mistresses, my lady? Like, now we've caught his interest. And that's where she's like, the coachman is usually the object of choice. I will abstain until heirs are produced, of course. It's in the contract, page 50.
Yeah. I like how she also says the object of choice, not person. Object.
Right, yeah.
They hire a new coachman. She pulls out a tape measure and she's like, yes, this is suitable.
Meanwhile, Lord Harms is very uncomfortable over here while cousin Marisai is just staring at her feet the whole time. And Wax is like, why is she even here? And that's when Lord Harms is like, daughter, maybe we should move to the conversation to less personal topics for a span. And she's like, okay, yeah, there's some stuff I need to know. Are you religious? And he says, I follow the path. And she's like, well, that's the safe choice, I guess, if somewhat dull. I, for one, have never understood why people would follow a religion whose God specifically prohibits worshiping him.
I also like how she just has a contract for their whole relationship, but she's calling him dull.
Your religion is boring.
It's like, yeah, can we add to the contract a part where you don't sass me about my religion?
Yeah, I want to let me get some addendums here, some make sure that I'm covered as well. And he says it's complicated. She's like, yeah, that's what Pathians like to say, with the same breath where they try to explain how simple their religion is. And he's like, that's complicated too. A simple kind of complicated, though. She is a survivorist, which she's like, oh, great. Well, I mean, they're not that bad. Some of them, at least. So, yeah, I want to know what the survivorist religion is about now that he's like, geez. I mean, they're not all so bad, I guess.
It's just funny to me because it's like all built on people we know from the previous books. So it's like, I mean, the Survivor and Harmony were friends.
And then Wayne distracts them by being like, oh, man, those are nice bookshelves back there. I wish I had shelves like those. And when all the guests turn, he pops up his bubble. It says it's about 5 feet across, so it only captures the 2 of them. And once it's up, you can't move it. But years of familiarity allow Wax to discern the boundary of the bubble. You can see a little wavering in the air to show you the edge of the speed bubble. And Wayne's like, well, I think the quiet one's kind of cute, but the tall one is insane. Rust on my arms, but she is. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. We find out some details about the speed bubble. You can't shoot out of them. Well, you can, but stuff passing through the barrier gets deflected strangely, so you can't aim out of them. And Wax is like, look, this is a good match. And Wayne brings up Lessie, and he's like, shut the hell up about Lessie. And he's thinking, I almost got myself where I could stop thinking about her. What would she say if she saw me now? Probably laugh at how ridiculous it was. She wasn't the jealous type. This is my duty now, Wax says. And Wayne says, your duties used to involve saving folks, not marrying them. And he makes a joke about if you were going to become a different person, couldn't you have chosen one without such an ugly face? And Wax is like, Wayne, this is serious. And he shows him the bullet, and Wax says, what's that? And he goes, bullet? you shoot folks with them, hopefully bad ones, or at least one's what owes you a bar or two. Bar seems to be some sort of unit of currency, because it's the second or third time a bar has been mentioned in that context.
I guess bars of metal valuable in this.
Yeah. But now they're starting to turn back, and he's like, okay, it's time to cough. So apparently, like, the sound, I guess, still gets out, but all that conversation they had is compressed into like a few seconds of sound that is heard by these people. So they cough to kind of cover all the like chipmunk sounds, I guess, that would be coming out at that point when the bubble drops. And nobody seemed to notice anything, so it's all good. And Wax is like, so I appreciate the contract. I'll read that over, but I kind of was hoping to learn something about you in this meeting. And she goes, well, I've been working on an autobiography. Maybe I'll send you a chapter or two. His response is, that's very unconventional of you. But please tell me about your interests. And she likes plays, but that makes the room uncomfortable, and Wax is the only one who doesn't know why. And the playhouse was robbed 2 nights ago in the middle of the performance, which he doesn't read the papers apparently, so he wasn't familiar with this. They took a hostage and ran off with all the monies, and no one has heard from the hostage yet. She was a cousin of Steris's, and Wax goes, oh, same as, and nods towards Marasai, and the three of them are confused for a minute, and then Lord Harm's like, oh, no, different side of the family. There were dozens of robbers, maybe as many as 30, Marasai says. And Wax is like, geez, that's a lot. That means you have to have at least another 8 guys just to drive everybody away. That's a bunch of people. And Marasai says it's the Vanishers, the ones that are stealing from the railways. And Wayne says that hasn't been proven. And she goes, no, but there was a witness from the railway that described several of the men who were seen at the theater. So apparently we find out that these railway robberies are happening. A ghost rail car appears on the tracks, and then the train stops so as not to run into the ghost train. And then when it gets to where it's going, everything out of one car has mysteriously vanished. But in the more recent robberies, they've started robbing the passengers as well. When the train stops, they jump on, they steal people's shit, and then they leave. But the freight car is also still robbed. So, and Marasai is the one like giving a lot of information here, and Lord Harm's is like, "You're bothering Lord Ladrian. You need to stop."
It really does beg the question. It's like, why do they bring her?
Yeah, right. And Wax is like, what? No, she's not bothering me. And that's when Steris goes, are you holding is that a bullet in your fingers? He's been looking at the bullet that Wayne brought. He's like, oh, right. No, that's nothing important. And Wayne mouths to him, push on it. While Steris is like, are you quite certain that your unconventional past is behind you? And Wayne tries to help out by being like, oh yeah, he's boring. Unbelievably, comically, nonsensically boring. You could squeeze more excitement out of a beggar waiting in line at the soup kitchen on rat meat day. And Wax is like, thank you. Thank you so much.
Love how it sounds like an event. Rat meat day. Right. First on the schedule
Clearly
is
you've
goat
never
meat
been to
day.
rat meat day.
then you got pig meat day. And then we got something special. It's rat meat day. Oh, yay.
Delicious, delicious rat meat.
But they
dear rat meat.
They decide that they're going to appear together at the Yeoman Ostlin wedding, which had been mentioned earlier. And in the meantime, Wax has has some steel shavings hidden up his sleeve. And he drops some in his tea and drinks it. I don't know how you do that subtly where people aren't noticing that you're putting something in your tea, but whatever. And when he burns some steel and sees the blue lines pop up, the lines do not go to the bullet in his finger. And he realizes it's aluminum. Aluminum and a few of its alloys are allomantically inert. You cannot push or pull on them. They are also very expensive. More expensive than gold or platinum is aluminum.
Is there a reason why Wayne had to do that now?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's even more my question about what happens immediately after, where he turns to Wayne and mouths, "Where did you find it?" And everyone is just staring at him.
Yeah.
And Steris is like, "Are you all right? I know a good zinc counselor if you need some emotional aid." We talked about that before. Like he needs a counselor.
Sure, it's written into the contract somewhere. Approved counselor list.
And she's like, he's like, yeah, no, everything's fine. I think this has been a productive meeting. Don't you guys agree? This was great. And she goes, that depends. The wedding party is tomorrow. I can count on you having reviewed the contract by then, right? He's like, yeah.
Also, okay, as someone who has planned their own wedding before, why are invitations going out the day before?
Right? That's ridiculous.
She rambled on for 18 pages, front and back.
And back. Oh.
And Lord Harms is like, hey, maybe your uncle can come to the party. And Wax is like, no, he cannot come to the party. He has a very important foaling he needs to attend. And so, yeah, they leave, and then he can talk to Wayne all he wants. He didn't need to do the bullet thing and, like, mouth things at him in the middle of this meeting.
Yeah.
Wayne's like, nice bunch. I see what you're doing. With wife and in-laws like them, you'll feel quite at home here, just like the jailhouse and its occupants back in Weathering. The bullet was dropped at the theater robbery by one of the robbers. Wayne says, I traded the constables for it this morning. Wayne had a very liberal interpretation of what trading entailed. Oh, don't get that way, Wayne said. I left them a nice cobblestone for it. I think Steris and her pop are convinced you're a loon, by the way. Yeah, well.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. I like aluminum is more valuable than gold or platinum. And he's like, no, I traded them a really nice cobblestone for that bullet. So I think it's all fine, really.
It seems like a fair trade.
Yeah. I mean, they got a rock. It's fine.
It's a really pretty rock.
I spit shined it.
Ew.
And Wax is just like, no, look, I'm busy. I'm doing my own stuff. The bullet doesn't change anything. And Wayne is determined to solve this mystery. He's going to find out what's going on. And Wax is like, that's not your job. And he says, well, it wasn't your job to go out in the rough and start hunting criminals down, but it needed to be done. So that's what I'm going to do it. They've taken 4 hostages so far and not returned any of them. That doesn't bode well. And he says, Wayne says, I'm going to find out what's going on with or without you. And Wax says, without me. And Wayne's like, fine. But look, I need a place to start. You always did the thinking. And he says, yeah, having a brain helps with that, surprisingly. There have been 8 robberies, 7 railway cars, and most recently the theater. So actually, if there were 7 railway cars robbed, Wax has lost 2 shipments, and House Tekiel has lost 5. That's all shipments between the 2 of them. I mean, maybe other people have stuff in that, because I guess the food stuff was stolen too. So it may have just lots of people might have shipments in the same car, I guess. So 4 female hostages have been taken among the last 3 robberies. Wayne also traded the constables for a list of all the stuff that's been stolen, and Wax says that he doesn't think it's about the robberies. This is too large a gang, too well funded. If they really wanted money, they'd be robbing gold transports or banks. The robberies are probably a distraction. He thinks they're after something else. And if looking for that goes nowhere, maybe one of the hostages was the actual target. Maybe the whole thing's about blackmail somehow. And Wayne says, yeah, but they robbed some trains before they ever took hostages. And Wax says, yeah, they robbed trains and got away with it. Like, why would you change what you were doing when you were very successfully robbing trains and never getting caught? And Wayne's like, come on, tell me the truth. You really don't even want to know? Doesn't it itch at you? And Wax says no. And Wayne says, I'd believe you if you could say that without your eye twitching. I noticed you didn't give me the bullet back. And Wax says, nope. Also, you're still wearing your metal mines, keeping steel hidden in your sleeve, and I noticed a gun catalog over there on the table. And he's like, hey, guy has to have a hobby. And that is the end of the chapter. Wayne takes off into the night or day, whatever. And that's where we get, honestly, these newspaper pages are real interesting to me, and I want to bring up this one if I can. I have to look at it on my phone, so give me a second, because there's a couple of fun little details hidden in here. Again.
I sort of thought these would be like the bits that we have to piece together, like the epigraphs.
Like the epigraphs, it does seem like there might be some stuff in there. So the big article on this one is House Tekiel unveils the brake knot, claiming it will revolutionize security and transportation. They have a new vault-style train car intended for transporting valuable goods via railway. Yeah, I guess if after Tekiel had 5 shipments of shit stolen, they're like, okay, we got to do something about this.
Yeah. I did read that at least, so I kind of knew that there was something about that.
And then there's a smaller note, the Phantom Rail Car, described by witnesses. And then there's down at the bottom, there's a thing about a soothing parlor, relief from your pains. Mistress Halleck's Alamancer has opened a new soothing parlor, luxurious massage, sweet scents, and a soother on duty to give an emotional massage. So isn't that nice?
We made a joke last week about how there should be like therapists and other people who use soothing. And yeah, between this and the fact that she mentioned there was a Zinc, which I think is rioting counselor
Yeah. I think
as
that's
well.
Is
Like,
that what you
huh.
want out of a counselor, though?
I mean, he can riot your like relaxation emotion or
Well,
whatever.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
he could
maybe
riot
it's just
you
like-
to like be happy.
Yeah. Or it's just like, you need to just get this all out of your system, riot it out, get it all out sooner, and then you're good.
And then there's I like the one that's like a new tale of the roughs exploring the pits of Eltania. Our exclusive series Alamancer Jack continues his exploits exploring the distant roughs. In this
Of course,
installment,
Jack.
yeah, right. The infamous pits of Eltania, where Kolos tribes rule the land and precious unknown metals can be discovered. So won't that be an exciting story?
Yay, new pit.
And actually, one of the short stories in Arcanum Unbounded is Alamancer Jack and the Pits of Eltania.
Oh, cool.
Episode 28 through 30 is what is actually the subtitle. So we jump in the middle of his adventure at the Pits of Eltania.
Also, I noticed they appear to have named the month on this newspaper after Doxin.
Doxil, he sure did. And actually that feeds right into a month is mentioned in the next chapter, and the month is called Vinuark. And Brendan mentions in the annotations, yes, one of the months is named after Vin. There are 12 months, and one of them is named after each member of the crew with a few tweaks. The days of the weeks also have different names, but we ended up not using any in this book. So now I want to know what all the days of the weeks and all the months are called. Like, come on, you can't not tell us. He also mentions in the same, and I was going to read, but we'll just, since I'm already talking about it. He says, by the way, Scadrial is the closest Earth analog in the Cosmere. I did this intentionally as I wanted one planet where terminology and the like have progressed similarly to what we have. There are distinctions, of course, but generally we've got a lot of similarities. Even in the original Mistborn, we reference plants and animals with Earth-style names. You can assume on Scadrial they have horses, dogs, cats, sparrows, and the like. There are 12 months, 24 hours in a day. Gravity is Earth gravity, things like that. So there's some information. Moving into Chapter 3. So Wax is working under the electric lights, which are still a wonder to him. He says the words of founding had given hints regarding electricity, and what men had achieved still seemed incredible. He's got a pile of newspapers. They're called broadsheets, and he doesn't usually read them because the reports of crime get his mind going in ways that he doesn't want it going and make it hard for him to focus on what he's supposed to be doing. So, but now that this discussion about the Vanishers have come up, he has to read some stuff about it or it's going to drive him nuts, which, yeah, I can understand that. He's like, maybe I'll just read a little bit just to catch up on current events, Got to be informed. And I do like that there's like certain broadsheets for people like him who want to catch up on a story that they may have missed that collect a lot of articles over the previous weeks and even months that are about the same thing. So you can look through them real quick. That's a cool idea. I don't know if that is a thing that actually happened in the past or not, but I like it.
The equivalent of Hey Google.
Yeah. Right? So the first robbery was 7 months ago, just before he'd arrived back in Elendel. But they weren't calling them the Vanishers yet.
Man, I think I mentioned this in the original trilogy. The old X-Men villain, the Vanisher, like the Obligators and their eye tattoos reminded me of him. And now like actual Vanishers are showing up. Like, what the hell, man?
I don't know anything about that X-Men villain.
He was the second X-Men villain ever.
Huh. I'm going to look him up so I can see his eye tattoos or whatever.
Oh man, did you hear?
Oh yeah, sure enough.
Furious typing. He was really going after it.
Yeah.
I typed like 6 letters.
You can tell he was a really when he was created, they were just like putting all the effort into the guy has these powers because his name was Telford Porter. Like,
what a great name.
Oh,
that sounds like the kind of name
wow.
you'd see in this book, actually.
Yeah, that's true. That typing thing got me thinking, I think you and I are both heavy typers. I remember one of my teachers was super obnoxious in school, and she taught the typing class, and she would get annoyed if she thought we were typing too loudly.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and she was like, you don't need to type that hard on the keyboard. You're going to break it. I'm like, that's not how keyboards work, dummy.
I've been told before I type too loudly. I'm like, well, this is why I always seem to be set up in a different room to everyone else. So.
Maybe I'm just more excited to type than everybody else is. You ever think of that?
Oh. I've been typing too long to change my style now. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Wax is looking through to find out what was stolen in the beginning. Tekiel was one of the richest houses in the city, based over in the 2nd Octant, but their new skyscraper was being built in the business district of the 4th Octant. Well, how interesting. And he does find a letter that Augustin Tekiel has wrote a few months back denouncing Elendil's constables for their failure to protect or recover his goods. But he realized it took him 3 months to say anything after his first shipment was stolen. That's a long time. Kind of weird. Second and third robberies had been steal shipments, which he says is an impractically heavy substance to be stealing, and not as valuable as simply robbing the passenger cars. The fourth robbery, that was the foodstuffs. The fifth, sixth, and seventh had all involved stealing from passengers, the seventh time being the only time they'd taken 2 hostages instead of 1. And no matter how many guards or how sophisticated the locks, they always get in and out real quick and take all the shit. And so his first thought is, are they using a speed bubble like Wayne? And he's like, oh no, you can't move in or out of the bubble very well, and it would be impossible. It would be impossible to make one so big that you could encompass the whole train car and make the robbery go fast. And so the newspapers are theorizing what's going on. Some people are also theorizing speed bubble. Other people are thinking maybe it's a pewter ferrochemist who can get real strong and carry everything out. But that doesn't explain how are they bypassing the locks and the guards. And that's when Tilom shows up and he's like, hey, you want some tea? And he asks if you have a preference, and Wax says whatever. He goes, my lord, there's great importance to tea. It
Wrong
should
answer.
never merely be whatever. Reminds me of B. We used to have the discussions with B was really into tea.
Oh, yeah, way back when.
And so they have the whole, are you planning to sleep soon? Do you want something to clear your mind? Sweet or not, minty or spicy, strong or weak? And he's like, pulls out several jars and mixes stuff together and makes like this from scratch tea. To which when Wax finally takes a sip, he's like, preservation's wings, man. This is good. He's like, thank you. I know. I'm a tea genius.
Also, I like how they're referencing preservation, and also, did preservation have wings?
Yeah, I don't know. Then the butler's like, well, Miss Grimes would note that you seem to be slipping back into old habits. And he's like, well, you know, the harms were aghast that I didn't even know anything about these robberies. Got to keep up on current events. And the butler's like, yeah, that's a good excuse. To which Wax says, thank you. I almost have myself completely persuaded. And he hasn't been able to figure out what the first shipment was that got stolen until Tilom says, I believe it was a shipment of wool. I heard it being discussed at the butcher's earlier in the week. And Wax like, wait, wool? That don't make no sense.
Maybe they're just cold.
Yeah, they were really cold in the middle of the summer. And he has to bring him some paper, which used to belong to his sister, and that brings up some memories about over 20 years where he barely ever saw his sister, and he kind of regrets it now that she died in the same accident as his uncle.
Fair reason for regret.
And so the first robbery happened on the 14th of Vinuark, which apparently is the middle of the summer. Second robbery happened much later. And so after some examination of various manifests and records, and his uncle has stuff where he keeps track of what the competition was doing, Wax decides it wasn't wool. That's stupid. It was aluminum. Tekiel was avoiding taxes by claiming the aluminum was something else. His aluminum shipments for this year are way lower than the last 2 years, or the last 2 years are way lower than before that. But his smelters are still producing it. So I'd bet my best gun that Augustin Tekiel, with the help of some railway workers, has been running a nice, profitable little smuggling operation. Which is why he did not make a big commotion after the first theft.
Well, you know that guy's got to be a villain because his first name is Augustine.
And so that also explains the long wait between the 2 robberies. The bandits were using the aluminum, either selling it for money or to make aluminum bullets. But why do they need aluminum bullets? And Tillem's like, well, I mean, for killing Alamancers. Which draws the question where he's like, do you think the people being kidnapped are Alamancers? All 4 women are from wealthy families. None of them have openly Alamantic powers. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Sometimes that stuff is kept a secret, which was also true back in the Final Empire days, so that's kind of funny. But some people apparently just pulled that shit out. It says that one candidate for the orchard grower's seat in the Senate had run solely on the platform that he was a copper cloud and thus could not be affected with zinc or brass. Woof.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be that guy right now. Shouldn't that say he's a smoker because he produces a copper cloud?
Maybe they don't call it smoker anymore. Maybe that the term has gone out of style.
Smoker is way better than copper cloud. Come on,
I agree,
guys.
100%. Yeah, smoker's way cooler. Smoking is cool, kids. Do it. No, don't. That was no. Don't
Whoops.
do that. And apparently that dude won by a landslide because people are like, "Oh, that's great. I don't want my Senate member being secretly influenced by those freaking Alamancers." And so Wax is like, yeah, I bet all the captives were secretly Allomancers. That's why they got aluminum bullets. And they probably have aluminum lining in their hats to shield them from emotional allomancy, which is way easier than being like a copper misting. Just if you could just put aluminum in your hat.
Which, oh my God.
I just pictured them
Brandon.
all with tinfoil.
Yeah, Wade's
right?
throwing
It's
a tinfoil
tinfoil
hat
hats.
joke.
They're actually super effective here, apparently.
Sure. Tinfoil, you know.
But of course, aluminum is super expensive, I guess. So I guess not everybody can afford a nice hat with aluminum stuffed in there. And so as he's thinking through all this, Tilom is like, hey, weren't you going to go over the ledgers tonight? And the lease on the new offices in the Iron Spine? And Wax is like, yeah, I'll do all that. Okay, when? And apparently it's gotten a lot of time has passed. And so Tilom has to go into, he's like, okay, let me tell you a story about how your uncle was I forget what they call it. Somebody goes to the horse track and bets a bunch. There's a name for that. Hunter. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Not long after he became High Lord, he would spend most of his days at the tracks. And Wax is like, wow, no wonder we're destitute. And Tilom says, no, actually, he was really good at gambling. He usually came out way ahead. But while he was winning a small fortune at the races, the house was losing a large fortune in mismanaged business. Of course, given how his uncle left things, maybe he should have stayed at the track. And Tilom's like, look, I'm not trying to lecture you. A man has to make his own decisions, but I'm just trying to warn you. Even a good thing can become destructive if taken to excess. Your house needs you. Thousands of people are relying on you. And Wax is like, oh, shoot, you're right. It's 2:15 in the morning, and I need to get some sleep, and I still haven't done any of that work I was supposed to do. But he realizes he didn't say his daily prayers because things were so crazy. And here's where we get some of the interesting stuff about the Pathian religion. There's no specific stuff about how you're supposed to pray, just you're supposed to spend 15 minutes in meditation and pondering. And it's like a lot of people like to sit cross-legged, eyes closed, but he can't do that. It makes his back hurt. And also, what if someone sneaks up on him while his eyes are closed and shoots him? So he prefers to just stand. So he has to put his earring in, his religion earring, stamped with the 10 interlocking rings of the path. So it's the 10 rings is what he's a member of. And, worshiping the Mandarin or something. And I love he's like, so yeah, how are things up there in the mists, Harmony? Life's good, I assume, with being God and all. In response, he felt a sense of amusement. He could never tell if he created these sensations himself or not. And in the annotations, it says, so if it matters to you, that is actually Says talking to Wax here. It's not just his imagination. I'm not sure what readers are going to think of this. My goal with the original Mistborn trilogy was to set up a mythology for the world, one in which real characters were playing a part. Sazed is essentially God now. Maybe lowercase g would be a better word, but still, he's the one watching over the world, making sure things go as they should. At this point, he's working hard to discover what's going on with other shards and to keep another disaster from coming Scadrial's way. You should know that holding two opposite shards of Adonalcium has made Sazed more zen, if you will. Not inactive. However, he has taken on a belief that both ruin and preservation are important in people's lives and doesn't feel that interfering is something he should often be doing. He sees his primary role being to encourage people to be better and to keep an eye on other shards to make sure that the world keeps working as it should. So that's an interesting note. But Wax is here thinking, like, maybe you could use your powers to help me some because I feel like I'm in a bind. And it's weird to him because he's used to praying when he's really in a bind, like tied up about to be murdered or something, lost in the roughs without food or water. Right now he's in a lavish mansion and has a seat in the Senate. So it's a very different circumstance from what he's used to. So he's like, so why do I feel like these last 6 months are the hardest ones I've ever lived? And we find out a little about how the stuff is organized, and it sounds kind of messed up to me, where he's like, look, so the Ladrian house started as several thousand individuals following the origin, capital O, and had grown large in 300 years. Waxilium determined their wages, their privileges, and their lifestyle. And if his house collapsed, they'd have to go elsewhere, but they would be lesser members of those houses for a generation or two until they obtained full rights. That's, wow, okay. A couple of generations is a long time to have to work yourself up.
Yep.
The path is a simple religion in that it has one basic tenet: do more good than harm. There's also the belief that all truth is important, the requirement to give more than you take. There were over 300 examples listed in the words of founding of religions that could have been, might have been in other times, in another world. So we do know that Sazed left behind at the end of the third book all the information from his copper mines in book form. So all those religions, the 300 or whatever religions that he was crossing off one at a time during that last book, were in there somewhere, I guess. But I like, among the various things in this religion, the path was don't waste time worshiping harmony. Doing good was the worship. Which that sounds like Say's to me. I can see that. Waxilium had converted to the path soon after leaving Elendel. He was still convinced the woman he'd met on the train had been one of the faceless immortals, the Hands of Harmony. She had given him the earring every Pathian wore one while praying. So that's a cool name for a group, the Faceless Immortals. I like that.
Yeah.
So he senses, I guess is maybe the right word, a whisper inside him that says, use your talents, you'll figure it out. And he says he often from praying just gets this vague sense of encouragement. Like, keep going. It's not as difficult as you think it is. Don't give up. Other religions had ceremonies and meetings, not Pathians. In a way, the simplicity made it harder to follow because it left up so much interpretation up to your own conscience. That's kind of interesting. After meditating, he feels like Harmony wants him to do both. Be a good house lord and figure out the Vanishers thing.
Which Sace probably does want him to figure it out.
Maybe. Yeah. And then he decides to sit down and work on the house's ledgers. And that's the end of the chapter. So, yeah, I guess we can go into predicaments. Maybe, I guess what I'm interested in at this point is what do you think is happening with these trains being robbed? Because that was this whole second chapter was largely about how mysterious and weird the situation is. So if you're going to, among your predictions, let's hear what you think is happening there.
Predicaments. Oh, I don't really know where this is going. I feel like I don't really have enough information yet to kind of make proper guesses. I'm going to go with, like last week, I think I said Wayne is actually a mistborn. Now that we've met Wayne, I don't think so. Just doesn't feel that way to me. What's happening with the train? I think he's sort of onto something with the different metals being taken. It does seem that there's going to be a bigger, more Allomantic-centered scheme going on. In the newspaper, there was something about a phantom train or something.
Yeah, like a ghost train coming the other way on the tracks that makes the train stop.
Yeah, I mean, probably not a ghost train, but maybe there is a new skill or something. I don't know if it could tie into, oh my god, my brain and words. That metal that you can burn.
One metal that you can burn, yeah, right.
That one metal, the one that got exploded in the pits.
Atium?
Oh, Atium.
Atium.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe it's not a ghost. Maybe
it's a mist
someone
shadow
could
or whatever
see
they
it
call
as a possibility of what was going to happen, or I don't know. We don't know anything about the witnesses yet either. Is it a story that's just being spread? What's going on in these other pits as well? I don't know if maybe that'll all come together. I don't find it likely that we've actually got a ghost train. I think there's something else. I like the idea that all of the people that have been kidnapped have got some kind of allomantic power. Maybe it's going to be used on a larger scale for something else. I don't know yet, but I don't feel like I've really answered your question about what I think's happening. But I think you can gauge that my brain doesn't really know what's happening yet.
Sure. It's fair.
Yeah, I don't really have much else in terms of predicaments. Maybe, I don't know, this contract lady, for some reason I just knew she was going to have blonde hair. I don't know why. when it was like, oh, she's got blonde hair, I was like, of course she does. I don't know. That's nothing against blondes. I just don't know. I feel like maybe there'll be more going on with her cousin. I don't know that this arranged marriage will work out. I don't think at this stage, I don't think she's really got enough in her, I guess, in terms of spontaneity or anything like that to really help drive the story in the short amount of time that Brandon's got to tell the story. I don't know, but I feel like everything we've just gone through is going to come back at some point to tie together our Sanderlanche.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. It really, just to pick out one of the things that you mentioned, it really does seem like there has to be something else going on with Marasai, right? Otherwise, her being at that meeting was really strange.
Why have her there? And I think it was Joe at the start was saying, maybe she's involved, or they actually have to keep an eye on her because she knows more or has some sort of useful information that could be Like if she was left alone, she could tell somebody. Yeah. Maybe she's a super mistborn.
Super
Ferrochemist.
mistborn. Okay.
A super mistborn ferrochemist. I don't know.
Mistborn of legend.
The legendary super mistborn. Freeze is just like, oh god, no.
Not this again.
I don't know how many times I have to tell you that isn't true.
Okay, so my predictions. I'm going to be straight up honest. I got no bloody idea how they're jacking the trains.
Okay, that's fair.
I got nothing there. No, my prediction relates to Marasai. I was always calling him Marasi. But, so, I suspect that she is part of the Vanishers. And she may not even be related to the Harmses. It's like, I think she might have just found out about this meeting and sort of blackmailed them into letting her tag along, and she's slipping Wax enough information. If they're stealing Allomancers, powerful ones, then it could be that Wax is their next target, and she's trying to get him deliberately investigating so that he puts himself into a vulnerable position to get taken. Yeah, I think that I think he's become a target.
Ooh.
Because people are like, someone is aware of like, yeah, he's a really good Allomancer, he's a really good fighter, so he might actually be valuable to the Vanishers' cause, whatever it is, whatever they're doing. So yeah, Marasai is setting him up to be abducted.
Ooh, that could be very interesting.
Yeah.
That's even the kind of thing that you could slip in here and then like wait until really late in the book to reveal like the twists. Like, oh no, the unassuming girl was really working with the bad guys the whole time.
Yep.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions here. I anytime we talk about Phantom Train, it just makes me think of Kingdom Hearts 2. So I'm like a little I'm a little lost on the Phantom Train bit. My guess, if I had to formulate one, since we know Ben Deloy makes you go faster like in a speed bubble, perhaps they're not speeding up time. Perhaps they found some way to slow time down, like do the opposite, since we know that, Allomancy a lot of times works in opposites. So I'm wondering if somehow they're slowing down time and that's giving them an advantage. But other than that, I couldn't really formulate an idea. I'm not sure how. I like the idea that it might be Adium, but I'm not sure how Adium would help in this situation, just because of the limitations of it. But maybe there's an opposite thing that it does. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm not totally sure. That's my best guess, is that they're slowing down time instead of speeding it up. But that's because, we're working within the confines of the powers that we know. There could be more powers later that are introduced that would give us a better answer. But for what I know now, I feel like that's probably the best guess that I have. Yeah, I think Wax is going to have to get involved. I'm guessing that there's going to be some kind of combat coming soon, because the opening of the book was the prologue of the book was really great with the combat, and I feel like that's what we're missing right now. We've got the mystery angle, we've got the intrigue, we've got a crazy nutbag wife. So I mean, I think that's all we're missing. So I'm predicting that we're going to get some. Things are going to heat up. There's going to be some combat coming very soon, hopefully.
Okay. That's fair. It's got to show up sometime, right? Can't all be parties and politics, or can it?
No, it can't.
Not another Well of Ascension with less combat.
There was a lot of murdering in Well of Ascension.
There sure was, buddy. There sure was.
So, you can't really say there wasn't any fighting there.
I mean, I could say that.
I mean, if it is all political, this book, at least the book's shorter.
Yeah, there you go. Really, it's all going to be like one party, and it's going to be the whole book. They're about to go to this wedding or whatever, right? So it'll just be that's the rest of the book is the party.
They go to the wedding. Ghost Train will come on through with the bride and groom.
It's got Just Married at the back.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like the last season of How I Met Your Mother, where it all takes place on like one day.
Yeah, see, there you go. Okay, so speaking of the future, for next time, 10% more of the book, 2 more chapters, 4 and 5 is what we were reading for next time. Other than that, we have a couple emails that I was going to grab out. One is from Jason, who has sent us stuff before. It says, "Hey there, I took a break from listening during the baby break episodes and recently binged my way back up. I actually enjoy Elantris